Ever scroll through social media and see someone you vaguely remember from high school posting photos from a beachfront resort in the Maldives, while you're quietly celebrating because your checking account finally crossed into 4 digits? I've watched that moment play out for decades now, and I can tell you something most people won't say out loud. That feeling in your chest isn't jealousy, it's confusion. Confusion about what wealth actually looks like in America. I'm what people like to call grandma investor. I've lived long enough to watch people earn fortunes, lose fortunes, rebuild, and sometimes never recover. And if there's one pattern I've seen repeat over and over, it's this. The people who look rich are rarely the ones who sleep well at night. We've been taught to measure success by cars, vacations, and income numbers, but those are just surface signals. They don't tell you who's financially safe and who's one bad month away from panic. By the end of this story, you'll understand the single mistake that keeps millions of Americans working harder every year while feeling poorer, not richer. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. When most Americans picture a rich person, the image is almost automatic. A luxury car, a big house in a good zip code, designer brands, and vacations that look impressive online. I don't blame anyone for thinking that way. That picture has been sold to us for generations. But here's what decades of watching money move have taught me. Looking rich and being wealthy are two completely different games, played by two completely different sets of rules. I've seen families with 6-figure incomes living paycheck to paycheck, terrified of a job loss they never talk about. I've also seen quiet, unremarkable households with modest lifestyles and 7-figure net worths who never worry about rent, groceries, or emergencies. The difference isn't intelligence or luck, it's what they measure. One group measures success by what they can show. The other measures it by what they can survive without. And this misunderstanding is exactly why so many hard-working people feel stuck no matter how much they earn. They're chasing an image, not a foundation. Once you see that distinction clearly, the rest of the numbers start to make a lot more sense. Income is the number everyone clings to because it's the one that feels most real. You see it on your paycheck. You feel it when your lifestyle improves. In America, income is treated like a scoreboard, and the higher it goes, the safer you're supposed to feel. I understand why. When you move past the median household income and into 6 figures, life gets easier. Bills get paid on time. You can finally breathe. But here's the trap I've watched people fall into again and again. Income creates comfort, not security. The top half of American households earn more than roughly $83,000 a year. The top quarter is closer to $150,000. Break into the top 10% and you're above $250,000. On paper, that sounds like success. In real life, I've seen people at every one of those levels panic when a paycheck stops. If your lifestyle collapses the moment your income disappears, income was never wealth. It was a dependency. This is where confusion sets in. People assume earning more will finally make them safe, so they chase raises, promotions, and bigger salaries without ever asking the harder question. How long could I survive if the income slowed down? That question makes people uncomfortable, which is exactly why most avoid it. And yet, that discomfort is the first signal that income alone is telling you an incomplete story. This is the moment where the conversation has to change, because this is where most people get stuck for life. High income does not equal wealth. I've watched surgeons, executives, and business owners earning hundreds of thousands of dollars a year feel just as anxious as people making far less. Why? Because income only tells you how much money is coming in. It says nothing about how long you can stand on your own without it. Wealth is measured by what you own minus what you owe. That's it. No lifestyle photos. No job titles. Just assets and liabilities. I've seen people with modest incomes quietly build real financial freedom by saving consistently, investing patiently, and refusing to let their spending grow as fast as their paychecks. I've also seen high earners spend every dollar they make maintaining an image that traps them. The moment you understand that net worth is the scoreboard that actually matters, the entire wealth conversation shifts. From here on, The numbers stop being flattering and start being honest. Once you stop looking at income and start looking at net worth, the picture gets a lot clearer, and for many people, a little uncomfortable. Net worth is simply what you own minus what you owe, and when you line Americans up by that number, the story changes fast. The median American household sits just under $200,000 in net worth. That means half the country has less than that, and a significant portion has far less. For households under 35, the median drops to a fraction of that amount, barely enough to cover a reliable new car, let alone real financial security. To move into the top quarter by net worth, you're looking at roughly $650,000. That's where people start sleeping better at night. Break into the top 10%, and you're approaching $2 million. That's the point where money starts working for you instead of the other way around. The jump from there is where most people lose perspective. The top 5% holds nearly $4 million. The top 1% doesn't start until you cross $11 million, and in many cases, much higher. This gap isn't linear, it's exponential. The distance between doing fine and financially independent is measured in millions, not motivation. And this is why so many hardworking people feel like they're running but never arriving. They're climbing a ladder that gets steeper the higher it goes. Numbers are useful, but they don't tell you how money actually feels in real life. I've watched people live inside every one of these tiers, and the biggest differences aren't the houses or the cars, they're emotional. When you're in the bottom half by net worth, life runs in survival mode. Every unexpected bill feels like a threat. A car repair, a medical expense, a few missed shifts at work, and suddenly you're making trade-offs no one likes to talk about. You're not building wealth. You're just trying not to sink. Reaching the middle starts to feel like relief. You have some savings, maybe a retirement account. You can breathe, but you're still tied closely to your paycheck. Lose it, and the clock starts ticking. The top quarter is where stress begins to fade into the background. You own assets. You can absorb mistakes. But the real shift happens near the top 10%. That's when money stops being something you chase and starts becoming something that supports you. Your assets quietly do the heavy lifting. By the time you reach true wealth, money becomes strangely boring. Not because you don't have it, but because it no longer controls your decisions. And that emotional difference is what most people underestimate when they think about being rich. As people move up the wealth ladder, something subtle but powerful happens inside their heads. When money is scarce, it represents safety. Every dollar saved feels like protection against disaster. That mindset makes sense, and it's necessary early on. As people reach comfort, money starts to represent options. You can choose where to live, how to spend your time, and what problems you can afford to ignore. But when real wealth appears, money changes again. It stops being about buying things and starts being about removing pressure. I've watched this shift confuse a lot of people. They assume that earning more will automatically make them happier. But instead, their expenses rise to meet their income. Lifestyle inflation quietly eats every raise. The car gets nicer, the house gets bigger, the vacations get fancier, and somehow the anxiety stays. This is the middle-class trap wearing expensive clothes. Truly wealthy people don't escape stress because they earn more. They escape it because they've separated their identity from their spending. Once money no longer defines who you are, it finally starts working for you instead of controlling you. One of the most confusing things about money in America is that financial advice often sounds contradictory. Save more, spend less, take risks, avoid risks, invest aggressively, protect what you have. The truth is, all of that advice can be right and wrong depending on where you are on the wealth ladder. What helps someone move from debt to stability won't get them from stability to independence. Budgeting and cutting expenses matter when you're trying to survive, but they won't build serious wealth on their own. At higher levels, the conversation shifts toward assets, taxes, and leverage topics that don't even apply early on. I've seen people stall for decades because they mastered the strategies for their current level and never learned the ones required for the next. They kept hiking with hill climbing tools while facing a mountain. Understanding this is freeing. It means you're not failing because you're bad with money. You may just be using the wrong playbook for the stage you're in. Before you think about earning more, investing smarter, or changing your lifestyle, there's one simple action that tells you the truth faster than any motivational speech ever could. Write down your net worth, not your income, not your job title, not what people assume about you. Add up what you own, subtract what you owe, and look at the number without judging it. Most Americans never do this because it forces clarity, and clarity can be uncomfortable. If you don't know your net worth, you're navigating your financial life without a map. This single number shows you which strategies apply to you and which ones don't. It tells you whether you're building something durable or just sustaining appearances. You don't need to fix it today, you just need to see it. Awareness is where real change starts. At some point, every American who cares about money faces a quiet choice, even if they never say it out loud. You can spend your life trying to look rich, or you can spend it becoming wealthy. Looking rich feels good immediately. It's visible. It's rewarded socially. People notice. Becoming wealthy is slower, quieter, and often boring from the outside. There are no applause lines for living below your means or letting your investments compound in silence. I've watched plenty of people choose the first path and spend decades chasing the next raise, the next upgrade, the next symbol of success. I've also watched a smaller group choose the second path and slowly buy themselves something far more valuable than status. They buy time, calm, and freedom from financial fear. Most people will never choose that road because it doesn't impress anyone early on. But if there's one thing a lifetime around money has taught me, it's this. The people who stop trying to look wealthy are usually the ones who become it.